Good morning, crypto Twitter, it's Misty Crypto, spreading crypto with options showing its benefits. To my generation, shout out to all my people. Gen Z needs to be included, it's really that simple. We are savage, amazed, boss, zesty, making money at the same time, spread peace. I feel empty if you don't include Gen Z. About to change the world, so y'all better get ready. Misty Crypto, I'm never backing down. I got a wax account, you should check it out. So many NFTs, I think I lost count, and I'm only getting started. Yeah, I'm barely off the ground. Misty Crypto, you cannot stop me. My head's a making diamond, your hands fall like origami. Never be the boss of me. Bitcoin's all I need. When I say I'm zesty, that's just me talking all this crypto and yum farm marketplace. I wanna see the more we gotta go through cyberspace. Leave this world without a trace. Stay faithful with different day, cause we partners in the cryptos didn't stay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Miss Teen Crypto Show. I hope everybody is having a happy Monday. Enjoyed this lovely weekend that we had. It's an early show. I know, 9 a.m. Eastern. Crazy of me today. But you know what? I wanted to kick off my week because we have someone really special today. But before we jump into our really cool guest, I want to say thank you to you guys for coming. I appreciate you all. And I want to say thank you to our amazing sponsor, Wax Blockchain. They're killing the game lately. Check them out. Link is in the live chat and in the description of the video. I'm going to throw in a free NFT right now. I'll throw in more in a little bit. Make sure you guys, if you're new to the channel, hi, my name is Miss Teen Crypto. How you doing? Make sure you smash the like, you subscribe, and share this stream out with friends so more people could come join us and feel this zesty vibe this morning. I'm going to jump right into our awesome guest because he's a busy man. His name is Birb. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Adrian, Birb. I'm very happy and excited to get you some answers throughout the show. I know the markets are busy as well. I'm just tiny a little bit busy, but I'm always excited to get some interesting conversations going on. So hopefully this is no different, and I'm sure about that.
Absolutely. We're always here. We're always zesty, Adrian. It's really cool to have you here. You're an OG in this space, but I really want to dive into you a little bit, into your life. Just go back a few years. What were you like up to in, let's say, college? Like, what were your aspirations in life? What career did you think you were going to have?
Yeah. So back in 2012, when I was graduating from my high school, I was supposed to actually be filing documents for the medical school. I failed the exam I wrote an exam, the exit exam. However, I wasn't good enough, to qualify for the medical school. Now, my mother is a doctor. My sister is a doctor to be also graduating from her final years right now. So, that was my kind of like initial, what I imagined to be, inspiration. However, I was also, always passionate about chemistry, right? So I actually got into chemical technology engineering. Made the master's in there, and then switched to another, School of Economics, the top School of Economics in Poland, in my country. I graduated with another master's in management and finance, and dropped the thesis on Bitcoin technical analysis, which was also kind of like exceptionally rare, because the universities kind of like are very, I should say, unpassionate and not passionate about technical analysis, because most of the people, they don't really get it well, right? It's kind of like within this a little bit of a taboo topic. There are some behavioral financial people, who would teach lots of contrarian views to what technical analysis proposes. So it was a very, I should say, topic with a lot of resistance from the academic side. However, it pushed through, so I was very happy and excited for it. Made some couple of interesting, observations. Other than this, I'm an amateur musician, right? So I sing in a men's choir. I've been singing and playing the guitar for like 10 years, maybe more.
Wow.
I stopped counting. Yeah, I stopped counting it, a long time ago. Like I said, I sing in this pretty cool men's choir. It's one of the leading men's choirs in Europe, actually. It's called Cantores Minores, which by direct translation from Latin means like little singers, small singers. And this choir recently celebrated the 30th anniversary. So it used to be just the young guys, like 10-year-old guys, just singing in a choir with a director. But eventually, all of those guys, basically grew up, and they raised their families and kids and everybody. So it's cantores menores by definition, but everybody's already like cantores mayores, maybe like they're major big guys, right? 40-year-olds.
Wow, so you've done like quite a bit. So you were actually gonna be some sort of doctor at the beginning, like you were going to medical school.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the plan. However, I always kind of like shared more passion, for the chemical side to it more than biological.
Yeah.
So, I followed the chemical path. And
And what did you like? What was so interesting to you about chemistry? Because personally, I loved chemistry when I took it in school. I thought it was so interesting.
yeah, yeah, I mean, first of all, there's, when you learn, different subjects, different classes, I think that there are some, I don't want to say predispositions, but towards certain subjects, you kind of like they come faster and easier to you,
Hmm.
right? Some people are extremely universal and they are very fast learners. I don't believe I'm this type of a guy. I would always kind of like what I had not, perhaps managed to push with my talents, because I was lacking some like I said, this predisposition or something. Then I would compensate it with the time, with the hard work that I commit to it, right? So I couldn't. I was definitely not, the most intelligent guy in the school, but I still worked hard enough to get similar results. So well, but I think that this skill, if you will, this persistence is what's taken me, through the journey so far. And I'm 28, 29 to be in like 2 weeks or so. And this has made me, in this comfortable chair that I'm sitting right now in Dubai and talking to you.
Wow, that's insane. I mean, you're only 10 years older than me and you've done so much. Like, that's actually incredible. And when did you touch your first chart? Was that after college that you started your technical analysis journey, or was that, during college while you were looking into chemistry and all this good stuff?
Yeah, it was a little bit more during,
Yeah.
because when I was starting my business, like for the Burp Nest, which I founded in 2017. Prior to it, I would be the private tutor for chemistry, for maths, for physics. I was taught, and tutor as well by an amazing physicist, who would actually, just be having this proper theory to bail out Einstein's, theory. So it was, like he spoke to the entire like academic, industry of physics, over the planet, and nobody could really deny him. So sadly, he's passed away. And my mass choir also was singing, at his funeral because I truly respected him. So I kind of like made sure to arrange that to somehow pay some tributes.
Of course.
And I told, to his family, because the problem is that this he was a proper like a proper born physics kind of like teacher, if you will, right? And he spent for about his 30, 40 years, on focusing and explaining the term energy, which is also one of the most misunderstood terms, in the global right now, in the global scale, which typically leads to very wrong conclusions about like physical theories, when you kind of like base your theory on a wobbly, foundation, because it's lacking this proper understanding of what energy is, which is the most foundational kind of like a term in physics and in life. Then typically would lead you to different paths, which would be very misleading. But that's probably another story, for another discussion. But here, what I would say, is that the charts, kind of like I got passionate about charts in 2017 when I would join, crypto like for good.
Yeah.
It was early 2017. I think it was March, April, or something like this. Prior to it, I had been focusing, on trying to develop my startup with my friend who also got in crypto eventually. And as soon as he joined, I later kind of like, became this sole writer. So I decided to also jump into crypto. But funny thing is that back in 2000, I think 13, 14, my grandfather would use Bitcoin for his football bets.
Your grandfather?
So Yeah, yeah. So
No
my,
way. No way. That was
yeah,
super early. Okay, go on. That was so
yeah,
super interesting.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, my grandfather, was this was definitely like tech savvy as for his age,
Wow.
So he was very like much into computers, into electronics, So he would be like this proper engineer, of heart, and he would gamble a lot with little success, if you ask me. This typically ended really badly, I guess, for the financials that he would invest. However, he had this kind of like a little bit of a touch for Bitcoin there. I don't know the full exact story. I never talked to him too deep about that. But he got it either lost or basically kind of like just dropped off somewhere, deciding that it's not going to be valuable maybe. So
Mm,
I'm not sure which it was, but because of my chemical studies, I would have tons of engineering friends who would many of them I would actually be on the coding and programmer side, right? So like building IT software, and they were of course like extreme geeks in terms of like blockchain and technology. So eventually, I remember that during the break between the exam sessions, which was like late winter in Poland. It was like November. Sorry, it was February, March, something like this. And I remember like many people, of course, talking about Bitcoin because it had just crashed because of the empty box, right? February that it kind of like kicked off there.
yep.
So Bitcoin had just entered the winter, for the bear market of 2014, and of course it was on mouths of everybody. So like I of course heard about it back then, but that's not where my major focus was, right? Because I was primarily focused on finishing and graduating my studies rather than kind of like distributing my attention and focus. My studies were giving enough of a trouble already on themselves, to kind of like get interested in many other places.
Exactly. And that must have been a lot for you just trying to navigate all of this, especially because you were in some heavy duty schooling. Like that's something you really got to know, you got to pay attention to. There's certain majors where kids kind of float by, but not what you were doing. You were very focused, which I think is super cool. And, finding Bitcoin and hearing about Bitcoin so early, like 2013, 2014, and then you jumped in 2017. You said kind of full time, starting the Burp Nest. What was that like period, like that 3-4 year hiatus for you? Like, were you looking into Bitcoin during that time? Was it something you kind of like pushed to the side a little bit, or?
It was certainly the latter. Like I said, the studies were pretty demanding, so I could
Yeah,
not really find much time outside of them. The exams, were extremely uh, demanding as well because that this Warsaw School of Warsaw University of Technology, the polytechnics, if you will, they were very high paced, very fast paced, right? So
mm,
there was not much time, basically to wonder what to do because there were the times it was so much pressure that you had to decide which exam you had to fail basically to make up for the others, right? Because you had
that's
you had
wild.
let's say three exams in a single day, and of course physically it was impossible to get ready for all of them. So you had to decide, okay, this one was the least important, so just push it, and just commit it least. So definitely not much time, back then. But 2017, as soon as I graduated from this, chemical technology, I freed up just a little bit of time enough to get more interested towards it.
And start when you first like bought Bitcoin. Was that 2017 as well when you wanted to start the Burb Nest, or was like you were kind of like dabbling in before that?
Yeah, yeah. So before I founded the Nest, it's an amazing company right now. But before I started the Nest, it was me being the sole trader there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be like proprietary trader for my own money. Um, most of them back then were of course lost. I was making so many mistakes, and there's always this first timers lag because the market was hitting up, and everything will, everything just went well initially. So then you got overconfident, so you started distributing too much money into too confidently.
Yeah.
So it eventually led to to the wrong places, and of course made me lose all of this. But then I still had this kind of like a private tuitions business going on my side for quite some time. So I had some money put aside, so I would basically keep reinvesting with a little bit of caution. I never was so forever and 100% all in or all out. So I would always have some money aside, to cover whatever I wanted, to get me enough of a flexibility, not to just get invested everything that I had. So that side, I had some money basically put aside for anything I wanted to do aside from necessities. So I could invest, and then try to trade Bitcoin and other shitcoins, altcoins. There were plenty of them. And I think from March or April till like June, July 2017, it was pretty good time for alts, right? It was this pretty major alt season.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, and then of course, there was this inflection and sharp reversal, right into the summer season, just like we would have typically, summer seasons are very slow and boring for the markets because you have people just taking attention, away from the markets. They're just taking vacation, taking time off. So low volume, slow volatility, a lot of sideways movements. So that was no different. But I was very wrong about buying somewhere closer to the peak at that time, when the altcoins were rallying. So for a moment I was profitable, but then of course eventually summertime came in. I lost there, and then then it was of course much better towards the end of the year 2017. So quite a good memory there.
Yeah, that must have been really difficult, and especially starting something like the Burp Nest while Bitcoin is running up to 20 and then had a big crash, and everyone was like Bitcoin's dead, and while you're just sitting here like I just started something, guys, come on, let's chill out for a moment. Do you mind talking about the Burp Nest and where you actually came up with the name and how that all started for you? I'll drop the link to everything in the live chat. It's also in the description, guys. Go on.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah, so the Burp Nest, originated from my own pseudonym, right, which was CryptoBurp, basically. And CryptoBurp is like I was trying to find my own brand and name in the space, and there were lots of crypto animals, entire crypto zoo. Like there was CryptoDog, my good friend. There was like Crypto Calamari, like whatever you want to imagine. Just add prefix crypto to it, and it had already been there. So I had to be more creative. And I found myself to enjoy the birds, parrots.
Yes.
I own 3 parrots right now, the medium-sized cockatiels.
Wow.
So me enjoying the parrots, and having this kind of like a thing towards like how intelligent the parrots actually are. They can recite poems, they can talk to you, they can run conversation, they have feelings. Some of the parrots, just for instance, African Grace, which is the very one in my company's logo, they are set and researched to be basically a 3-year-old, IQ of a 3-year-old kid, right? So there is some proper intellectual game going on with parrots, and that's how I kind of like got into many meme compilations with parrots because they tend to get extremely funny. And so instead of bird with the D at the very end, it's supposed to be Birb, which is this meme version of parrots that you can search online and everything would pop up. And CryptoBurp it's how it all came in, and the Burb Nest was of course the nest for the burbs. So so that's how it all kind of like came in, and it's been 5 years already. It's got amazing team of international professionals. 15 people in the team and counting, growing despite the bear market. So it's an extremely valuable, I think, lessons that I'd had over the years that let me all together kind of like along with my team push enough to get the stability and the financial capacity to keep growing despite the most difficult winter in the markets that we had not seen for many decades. So it's very good.
Yeah, I mean, wow, the Burb Nest. I really like it. I think it's very catchy. I think it's really cute. I think, a lot of people, need help when looking at charts. I mean, like, I'm trying to learn about charts. What do you think is like the best way to start off like a charting journey?
So, how to put it simply, I can tell you what works and what I believe to be a good model. However, I cannot guarantee there are no other models, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's a little bit, different. So like I said, some people are far more of the fast learners, not myself for sure. So for me, I like to have things structured as much as possible, right? in order to let my brain process it a little bit faster and better. So when I have a structured approach to education, to learning, then I kind of like happen at times to get these mental shortcuts so that I learn faster. But I always start with the definitions, right? So I would never suggest to anybody to start learning technical analysis and charts without understanding what technical analysis is in the first place.
Yes.
Right? So whenever I try to explain, it was in the past chemistry or maths, or physics, I would always try to first define the things in the objects and the merits before I actually nosedive into them. So I would probably, if I were you, and for the sake of good understanding of how the things work, I would definitely suggest you dive in to what technical analysis is, and this applies to any sort of like a question you may have in finance or outside finance. Like people tend to use words for meanings for which meanings they don't understand most often, right? This also applies to this energy term that I was referring to, and that's what my physics teacher actually taught me, to approach the things with the definitive manner, right? To try to define them first. And as soon as it's defined, as we know that this is a price study, this is an art, as a matter of fact, right? It's not about like predicting the future per se, which many people think it is. But it's actually about utilizing this essential information that's been provided in the price chart, in the price history, because there are certain rules, there are certain patterns that at times they resurface, that they exist somewhere. And you can use them if you are capable of seeing them or recognizing those patterns. You can make money of it, right? And then technical analysts are in the major part statisticians. So there is like entire frequency and probability of certain patterns that you can see and meet. And based on that, if you know that there are most of the patterns, let's say imagine you see some sort of like a symmetrical triangle or a head and shoulders pattern, and you know that for a specific market, there's only like historically 33% of likelihood of it, going in the direction that you imagine, then, perhaps it would not necessarily be wise to go all in into this position, right? And then perhaps, search for some more probable outcomes somewhere out there. So, the very use of price charts as a statistical tool, with a little bit of added, behavioral finance in terms of like recognizing the patterns and how people react to seeing, certain price reactions. This all, combines this massive, beautiful art of technical analysis.
Yes, it is quite the art. And I like how you were saying we do have to go back and kind of just look and define everything. I know sometimes I make the mistake of when I'm learning something just to dive right in and just try to do it. But, sometimes you got to scale back and be like, okay, so what does this actually mean? What does everything actually mean? And another thing that you brought up is that people kind of like trade with their emotions. And sometimes like even like besides trading with like their emotions, like making buys and things like that, also people are just like they hear some piece of news and they'll sell their Bitcoin, and everyone, there's just like a mass dump on the market. People trade with their emotions. Is this something that like you could somehow factor into charts, or like obviously can't predict everything, right?
Yeah. No, you're completely right. I mean, most of the people trade with emotions, and comes from the fact that we as human beings, we are subject to human errors, and those happen to be cognitive errors, and emotional errors, as in cognitive biases and emotional biases. And while on the cognitive biases side, you can actually try to master them, try to skill yourself, and counteract against the cognitive biases. When they come from faulty memory, you can try to make your memory work better, right? But in terms of like the emotional side of it, by definition, they are spontaneous reactions. Spontaneous means you cannot predict them, you cannot react to them when they happen, because, you cannot say, oh, at this time and this day, I'm going to have this and that emotion, right? So the nature of it is spontaneous. And as a matter of fact, it's much harder, to control the effects of emotional errors. And because they tend to actually be, always present in the markets, whenever you apply and put money somewhere, it tends to bring certain, endowments, certain feelings towards it, because you're hard-earned the money. This is the money you've been granted, you've been given, you've been, inherited or something. Then it always comes with a certain emotional baggage to the person. So it's very, very difficult, I think, to detach yourself from the emotion. You can do it, however, it comes with years of training, experience, and time. and commitment. That is for sure.
Yeah, I think, people just need to come up with a plan. Just like, have some sort of structure thing going on, which you talked about before, which I really like too. I like structure. I like to kind of have everything laid out, go through a list and kind of figure things out, go step by step. I think that's extremely important. And a lot of people right now, I know you've seen like, a few market cycles already, like bull market, extreme bear markets. Did you see any, kind of differences or maybe some similarities between, that run up in 2017 versus like this run up that we have to 69K in the recent, like what, year and a half ish?
Mhm. Well, there are always some similarities, right? Because the cycles, by definition,
It's a
they
4 year
come.
cycle.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Overall, yeah, Bitcoin tends so far to kind of like perform these 4 year cycles. Funnily enough, it seems to be strongly connected to presidential cycles, which also last 4 years, right? So presidential cycles, just tend to impact the way that the financial markets perform, mainly through the stocks, right? Through the stock
Yes.
market. So right now we have midterm election years. Now, 2022 is midterm elections. So these midterm election years, historically over the past like decades, have been always performing much worse on average than much better. And they either continued the bear markets that had already lasted before, or they tended to provide more of a sideways environment than bullish markets. So bull markets typically happen right into the very elections, as it can be well explained by the politicians who are at the steering wheel typically try to boost their chances for getting reelected because
Yep.
they can accelerate a little bit of economy, push the financial markets perhaps at a little bit of liquidity, print money, if you will, right, and put it and set it any way they want. And this typically tends to kind of like pump the markets a little bit towards the presidential elections. And there's a lot of dependencies, I would argue. So it happens for Bitcoin to actually really oscillate, between peaks and troughs somewhere closer to this 4 year cycle. However, I would not bet, I would not bet, towards saying that it's always going to be the 4 year cycle, right?
Yeah.
We know there's the halving process, which happens on average once every 4 years, which is definitely adding a lot of bullish pressure eventually and fundamental scarcity to it. However, the way that the markets work is strongly dependent on the economy, and the economy is strongly dependent on the market. So it's like a little bit of a vicious circle. And all things concerned, I would argue that as many similarities that I observed between 2017 and this very last bull market. Then I also saw a lot of differences, right? And those differences come from the fact that the history doesn't repeat per se, but it often rhymes, right?
Yes.
That's what is often repeated, and it is in fact true, right? Because if you think about it, civilizational growth for the humankind, it always comes, through the very, kind of like a bottoming out process. And then people, start inventing the new machines, then like the steam machines and the entire industrial revolution. So the markets start reacting to it as well. The prices are starting to going crazy, and the entire growth, just accelerates. So, but then there's also, this inflection time when something happens. There's like some imagine, potentially like some nuclear war or some other like extremely stupid, move that people would ever play. That is going to collapse the entire civilization, just like we had, the Romanian civilization, Greeks, and everything else in the past. So I think that it's a very good skill to try to locate ourselves in which part of a cycle we are. And it all confirms, in built environment for the financial cycles and for Bitcoin, right? So understanding Bitcoin among every other trend that exists, is definitely something valuable that I recommend everybody.
Thank you for that. And, a lot of people, are calling 10K Bitcoin, below 10K Bitcoin. Is this something you can, imagine? I mean, just like I came into crypto, like my Twitter account was made around April 2020, and Bitcoin at that time was around $7,000. And now, some people are calling for 8, 10. That's like almost back to where I started, which is absolutely insane. Can you see something like this coming? Or, could this be a time where, a lot of people were calling 10K, or calling like 800 when Bitcoin went down to 3,000. They were like, we're going to 800. It's going lower. We're going close to zero. And then it went the other way. Sometimes when everyone's saying the same thing, the opposite happens. Do you think this could happen now? Do you see maybe
Hmm.
anything on the charts that can indicate 10K or something like that?
Yeah. So listen, I mean, I think that in terms of, well, pulling the predictions, it's always like winning the lottery, And
Exactly.
if I was supposed to, like shoot certain specific targets, then I would most of the time be wrong about that, right?
Uh-huh.
I used to believe, like due to, for lack of my knowledge at that time, I used to believe that I was able of predicting the markets, and even if I was right, then I would believe, okay, I'm right about that, right? So let's try to make another prediction, and then it happened that I was right all over again, and this process repeated, a couple of times, and then you build this overconfidence in yourself. Well, this is
Yeah.
just an illusion. This is just an illusion of control, right?
Yep.
You cannot really impact the market. You cannot really your predictions, your guesses cannot really make the market to be more probable to follow specific scenarios. It's just a random guess at times eventually, right?
Yep.
And it's much more about the risk management to it, as in when their guesses, when the odds are against you, why would you position yourself extremely deeply, right? If the numbers are in favors, then just maybe you can commit with a little bit of more capital to it. So while not being able to predict the markets constantly, it's very important to understand that it's the position sizing that often many people fail at. So here, answering the very 10K, I would argue that it's possible, right? Because eventually, like I said, the question for opposing it is why would it not be possible, right? So we have a recession, which is typically more bearish than bullish for the markets. We have
Absolutely.
geopolitical tensions, right? We have wars going on. We have like energy, crisis. We have galloping inflation, which has not been going down as much as expected. So when we're heading into the winter, which may accelerate, even more energy resources, kind of like pumping in prices because of demand. So I would argue the markets are not in the best position right now, specifically for the stocks, for the risk assets. And Bitcoin is even more of a risk asset than the stocks are, right? So many people would use Bitcoin for its high capitalization already as a risk barometer, right? For what kind of like a risk appetite traders and investors have. And if Bitcoin is dropping, then they may actually just tell you something about how much risk seeking the traders are at this specific moment. And I would argue that being right now chopping between 17 like 500 and $25,000 is what we call a sideways movement, right? It's not a trend. It is lacking persistence. It just chops around between like specific frames, if you will, bounds.
Yeah.
However, it has nothing to do with any directional movement, right? So the only kind of like a persistence or lack of persistence comes from the fact that prices just swing to the side in the sideways there, just orientation. And I would argue that this itself is not necessarily the most bullish, of course, because it's not a bullish trend. It's not a bearish trend either. So it's not as bad as it could have been. However, I would argue that with the current place that the stocks are, and really rejecting the bear market rally that they had like a month ago, early August. Bitcoin had been underperforming stocks, and in technical analysis, there is this beautifully performed style of investing, which is called momentum investing, and it relies on very foundational like principle of technical analysis, which is that the trends persist, that the movements once the trend breaks, it tends to persist in this direction. And same way that Bitcoin had been underperforming, the stocks for most of the time, past months, in 2022, this this makes it the big underperformer against, let's say, S&P 500, which is often used as a benchmark. So the underperform in the name of the momentum investing and principle, the underperforming assets will continue to underperform more likely than not. And the outperforming assets will continue to outperform more likely than not because of this trend's persistence. So I would argue that Bitcoin is like, first of all, in order to see Bitcoin reversal, we have to see the stocks reverse first.
Really?
Because there are strong, yeah. I mean, that's what I observe at least.
Yeah.
It changes, but it does seem that because Bitcoin is very strongly attached, correlated to stock market, then Bitcoin is not going to reverse sooner, more likely than not than the stocks. So I would first wait for good environment for the stocks to recalibrate. Just find their own bottom somewhere, which could be more encouraging, for Bitcoin, which is even riskier to find the bottom as well. So I would argue that we may see more flash, down the toilet, the stock scene. And if it happens, then it's going to naturally drag Bitcoin lower as well, because the markets are less liquid, less money, recession, everything.
Yeah, that's funny, like you're saying we're in a recession, because like I kind of agree, but at the same time, a lot of people on the TV are like, no, we're not in a recession. Maybe we'll call it a recession like down the line. And it makes me laugh, but also what makes me a little upset, like on the less comedic side, is that like we're kind of like, Bitcoin is kind of trading like the stock market. And why is it doing that? Like, aren't we like made to go the other way? Like, isn't that why Bitcoin's here? I'm a little upset about it.
Yeah, this is actually a very interesting topic, On one hand, yes. On one hand, yes, because Bitcoin is supposed to be, by the fundamental law of it, is supposed to be digital gold, right?
Yes.
So it gets more and more scarce over the time. In the name of this, halvening process that cuts down basically the block rewards, and the mining difficulty increases. So it's naturally kind of like printed in the Bitcoin design that it actually gets more scarce over the time. A little bit similar to what gold does. However, it's at the same time not considered a commodity. Bitcoin is not considered a commodity, right? And here, it's much more considered a security for most of the time than not, which doesn't make things easier. But I would argue that Bitcoin is right now being treated and considered much more of a risk asset than an actual hedge against anything. So here seeing Bitcoin trade like stocks comes from the fact that investors see it more as a risk asset and kind of like not really a hedge against any inflation or not as a hedge against any recession. They are treating that, as a risk asset, even riskier than stocks. And I think that the biggest misconception is that most of the traders, myself included in the past, would believe that once a phenomenon like that is set somewhere, then it's going to be like that forever. But it's also not true, right? Because there are the times that Bitcoin trades opposite to stocks, right? Which many people would call decoupling. And there are the other times, just like right now, when Bitcoin is strongly attached to what stocks do, and it would perform exactly the same movements or exactly the same directions most of the time. So it changes. Right now, we just happen to be in this position, in this period where Bitcoin is trading just like stocks do. Perhaps it will change in future.
Yeah, it's sad. I don't like to see that. Like, I just feel like, Bitcoin's made to do different things. Like, so one second, was a joke in the chat. Okay, like, let's look at Wall Street to predict Bitcoin, and it fluctuates by statements made by the Fed. That's not even that far off, because I know, like, once, like, they go, like, Jerome Powell goes on TV, then things kind of get sour for the charts. And it's just because, like, never is there ever any good news, because God forbid we get some good news in this world. It makes me a little sad, but, long term, like what are your thoughts on Bitcoin? Like I don't think we're going to be in a bear market forever, and I don't think we're going to trade with the stock market forever.
I think you're right there, and honestly, the main point is to understand that, like I said, it changes over the time. So it's never staying like that forever, just like you said, all right? Unless there's like some fundamental change to it. However, as long as the regulators do not prohibit Bitcoin, whatever that would mean, then we are supposed to follow these market cycles, and the market cycles are always stretching between the extreme fear and extreme greed eventuality, right? Because this is what is defined by the behavioral finance, or by the behavioral aspects of what we do with our finances. And I would believe that one thing is, of course, managing the money. I'm still mostly out of the market. I'm not fully invested. I'm not ever all in. I kind of like distributed. I was lucky enough, and then risk averse enough to kind of like get distribution of my crypto wealth, outside crypto back in like Q4 last year. So I was very busy of exiting the market, with Bitcoin that's trading $50,000-$60,000. So
Yeah.
I would definitely just decrease the weight of my crypto assets, in the overall portfolio, and I would just get and invest in real estate, of course, take cash, invest in some jewelry, even watches, whatever. This would still be very big outperformer 2022 so far. So it was keeping my portfolio up. But eventually, of course, it's impossible to be always right, and it's impossible to keep always making money, when you have all your bags in one basket, right? So the very first rule is to keep your, eggs in many different baskets, if you will. So that's what I did, and which made me pretty well prepared for the bear market, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't get hurt in Luna. I didn't get hurt, in the bear market too much, because I had already been distributed somewhere else. So I was pretty lucky to it, and I just not decided to enter back in with full force, mainly because I'm a technical trader. So I would firstly trade the chart and not my kind of like other beliefs. I would not trade what the S&P 500 does, right? I would not trade based on what G Powell says. I would not trade based on Bitcoin's, halving process itself. I would trade based on existence of trends. I'm a trend follower. So I firstly wait for the trend. And 30% of the time, I'm going to be right only, right? 70% of the time on average, Bitcoin and other markets, they tend to oscillate in sideways movements, just the one we are seeing right now past months.
Yep.
And so it means that if I'm setting myself trades, for a trend, for assuming coexistence of trends, and there is no trend for 70% of the time, that I'm going to be wrong 70% of the time, and I'm going to lose money. However, the losses are going to be small enough, and controlled, that when this 30% of the trend actually just comes in, I can compensate all my small losses with one longer tail in the market as soon as it develops, be it a bull market or a bear market, right?
Yeah.
So I don't trade based on exogenous kind of like signals. I don't trade based on what happens on the geopolitical scene. I trade based on trends, and I'm just waiting for a trend right now to resurface.
Nice. That was some absolute alpha right there. And I like how you were kind of saying that you took profits, which I think is smart. A lot of people did not take profits. A lot of people saw like 60K. They're like, we're going to 100K. Everyone had laser eyes on Twitter. And then it kind of went the other way into the situation we're in now. And you diversified. You have your real estate. You have a bunch of things going on, which I think is pretty smart. I mean, you're at Dubai now. Are you into like Dubai real estate? Do you think like a lot of people are moving to Dubai? Do you see like that real estate market doing well?
Yeah, so well, I definitely invested in a couple of real estates in Dubai, but it goes well beyond Dubai as well, right? I think again, diversification, right? When something
Yes.
bad happens in one place, you always, well, for your risk sake, you're good to have your places somewhere else. So real estate, is fairly dependent on the location. Based on the financial reports, Dubai and Miami, with Miami the first, were being basically the best performing real estate markets for renting and for the ways that the prices trended at that time. However, of course, it was the beginning of 2022, so we didn't have recession just there back yet. We didn't really have the rate hiking cycle, so. In real estate is very strongly dependent on the interest rates, right?
Yeah.
And if there are high interest rates, which are right now, and they are trending very, very aggressively upwards, there are still, therefore a couple of FOMC meetings, left by the end of the year. So we're still going to see rate hiking cycle continuation, still going to see like altogether aggregate 150 basis points rate hike, just maybe, or even more. Nobody knows that. Then this typically is what hurts, the real estate and other interest rate sensitive markets. In the near to medium term, right? But it also means that when they kind of like take a hit, when they take a hit, which real estate has been doing for past months, then first of all, it's still, I don't mind it because it's impossible to have every single position in your portfolio to go up forever, right?
Yes.
And even
Yes.
then even if it's even if it's going down, then it's still probably saving money because the other market, just like crypto, is not down 30%, but it's down like 80% or 70%. So it's still remitting the hurt to your portfolio.
Yeah.
So yeah, for real estate, Dubai, I think definitely like came in with a lot of heat and a lot of market demand for real estate because of Expo. That was just until what was that, October 21 through March 22, if I'm not mistaken. So this was definitely a big rally, in the market, in the real estate market in Dubai. However, we all know how crypto friendly on a respect on a in comparison with other countries and other places, Miami was and has been. So this
Yeah.
is also the reason why many people move to Miami, and I'm not surprised by that. So it also kind of like leveled the prices up in Miami. So Dubai and Miami happened to be the best places at that time to invest in real estate, which is what I did. And yeah, I don't mind it at all. It's serving me well so far.
Yeah, you're killing the game, Verb. You're really cool. I really appreciate you, and I know you're on a mobile, so I'll wrap this up here because I know you're so busy. So overall, I think we've learned a lot today. Have a structure. Don't trade with emotions, and just don't get into the hype. Number can't always go up. As Adrian just said, your portfolio can't always go up. There has to be a little bit of pullback. That's only healthy. And, long term, we're all here for this revolution. We're all here for Bitcoin. Adrian, I'm going to drop some your link to your Twitter, the Burp Nest in the live chat right now. I have everything in the description as well. Where else can we find you if you want to shout that out? And what is one message you have for our friends in the chat, whether that be about crypto, real estate, about life? Whoever's like in your heart, what do you have to say for us?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity. Secondly, I'm very happy to see such, I want to say young, aspiring people just like you are, but I don't want to make it to some, yeah, far back. I don't want to say like I'm, too old. I'm just, 10 years above that. But it's really good that the next generations are really catching up, on the train and starting understanding, that there is something off, about the governments,
Yep.
and this is really positive, much more than not. And in terms of like where people can track it, then most likely, I get like Twitter accounts, which is crypto_Birb with the B at the very end. We have YouTube, we have newsletter, we have like IG. Probably everywhere we go, we're going to have a platform, which is also cool. However, the biggest one is Twitter, and well, we have tons of very valuable resources for everybody who's serious about learning, how to trade and learning about where to find the most professional and accredited, if you will, resources in order to learn. Everybody's struggling to find reliable resources that are beginner friendly.
Yep.
And so my team really make sure it happens to solve this problem, and we get it up the website, free for everybody. Just look up and learn 24/7 at theburpnest.com. So I kindly encourage everybody to go and take a little bit of learning. However, no pressure. Trading is not for everybody, so definitely don't rush over it. I wouldn't make it. Now I know that I would make a terrible doctor. So it's good that I'm not a doctor. And and in certain places, at times it's better not to be a trader. Just maybe, my grandfather, like I said, was a terrible trader. So not everybody's going to be a perfect trader, but with a good dose of commitment, with your heart up there, with your commitment, with your dedication and understanding for the need about the reliable resources, you can really grow towards achieving your goals. And for my final word, I would say, I was having this conversation at the Binance meeting in Dubai 2 days ago, and I met tons of incredible people. And I was talking to Stephanie at that time, who's head of operations for Binance as well. And she asked me a very similar question, and I told her that it was follow through, and it was follow through on everything, basically.
Yes.
So this follow through is what defines trends, is what defines directions, is what defines you're persistent towards achieving your goal, whatever that is. So if you have this follow through, if you actually perform it, always going to face certain barriers and resistance. But if you follow through over it, if you actually just follow through it and make your step forward despite all the difficulties, then it's going to take you into good places sooner or later.
Wow, I really love that. Damn. You were at Binance Blockchain Week, right?
I was, I was in Paris on that.
Yeah,
Two
that must
days
have been
ago,
fun.
it was crazy. Tons of
Wow.
incredible people again. But this one was different. It was not it was not a Binance Blockchain Week per se. It was Binance and Barge or something like that,
Yeah.
close to Burj Khalifa. So it was also spectacular.
Wow, super cool. Happy you got to hang out with the Binance team and, of course, travel, which, I, of course, want to visit Dubai, ride a camel in the desert one day, you know what I mean? But thank you for coming and hanging out with me, Adrian. I really appreciate you. Dropped some absolute alpha today. Really things that, I think I needed to hear, and also our friends in the chat needed to hear. So thank you to everyone in the chat, too, for hanging out with us. I know it's super early. I haven't even had my coffee yet. I need to go get some coffee. I need a whole pot of it right now. I need some breakfast. I need to get my day going, even though this was a really great start to my day. So thank you for hanging out with me again, Adrian. You're super cool. I hope everybody has a great day. I have another show at the end of the week. Oh boy. Oh boy, you guys are going to love it. Stay tuned for that. If you guys enjoyed the show, make sure you like, subscribe, share this stream out with friends, and make sure everyone can join in on the zest. Thanks again, Adrian. I hope everybody has a happy Monday. And as always, you know what I'm going to say? To stay zesty. Peace.
Thanks. Good luck.
Good morning, crypto Twitter, it's Misty Crypto, spreading crypto with adoption, showing its benefits to my generation. Shout out to all my people, Jesse needs to be included, it's really that simple. We are savage, amazed, boss, zesty, making money at the same time, spread peace. Might feel empty if you don't include Gen Z.